Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live, right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and on Twitter. As always, I'm Bryson Carver, and what a show we have for you guys today. Oh, this Hall of Fame stuff, man. This baseball Hall of Fame stuff. I cannot wait to launch on this because I got some things to say. I am like, I don't know, man. I'm going nuts on my chair right now because I got to get in this, man. I got to get in this later in the show. I'll talk about that as well. Sean Payton, who stepped away from the New Orleans Saints after nearly 2 decades as the franchise's obviously greatest head coach in its history, leading them along with Drew Brees to a Super Bowl title in 2009. He's going to Dallas, okay? He's going to Dallas, and I'm going to tell you why that's going to be the case later in the show, as well as James Harden, who is apparently frustrated with the Brooklyn Nets. I'll get into that later in the show and why I actually think he's justified. And y'all know I'm not a Harden defender whatsoever on this show. As well as other things. Big Ben retired and some coaching hires that have gone on in the NFL. However, we have to start the show on a somber note. As is obvious, over my shoulder is a Kobe Bryant jersey. I am wearing right now his infamous orange WNBA hoodie. And that is to pay tribute to the Black Mamba. That is also to pay tribute to his daughter, Gianna, better known as Gigi, the Mambacita Bryant, as well as the 7 others who passed away in that tragic helicopter crash 2 years ago yesterday. And, you know, it's first of all, it's crazy that it's been 2 years, but I think there's certain events that happen, good and bad, whether they be historical events, whether they be important cultural events, you know, big sports games, athletic events that we all remember where we were when we watched it or when it happened. And I think it is safe to say that every one of you guys, whether you be a Lakers fan, whether you hate the Lakers, I hate the Lakers. I have no love for that team. But we all remember where we were on that late January day on Sunday, wherever we were when we heard the news that Kobe Bryant had been tragically killed in a helicopter crash. And for me personally, I know I was in my bedroom, as 16-year-olds do, laying down, doing nothing, lazy Sunday, just scrolling through my IG feed. And about midway down, I come across this screenshot from an account I followed that is a screenshot of a TMZ article that said breaking news, Kobe Bryant among, at the time, it was reported, I think 4 or 5 that were dead in a helicopter crash in Los Angeles. I'm like, what? No, stop, man. I mean, we hear, excuse me, we hear of people who have been, I don't know, celebrities, you know, people talk about, oh, they died. And like these fake news outlets saying, oh, this person's died or that person's died. And we're like, oh, come on, it's BS. And then that person comes out on social media like, yeah, I guess I died, right? And so I'm expecting Kobe's going to tweet something, or he's going to like go to his Instagram stories and like screenshot the picture of the article. He's going to be like, yeah, guys, guess what? I'm dead. Right? I mean, especially because Kobe Bryant had just been passed by LeBron James the night before in the all-time scoring list. Remember LeBron? And he did it in Kobe's hometown of Philadelphia against the 76ers in a nationally televised game. And we're like, wait, a day later, there's no way he's gone. And so I'm looking at the internet. I'm looking at Twitter from reliable sources. Nothing. I'm looking through Google, news outlets. Nothing. Any news outlets that has reported is saying, according to TMZ. I'm like, with all due respect to TMZ, I'm like, they at times haven't been the greatest source of information that has ever been constructed. And so I go in the living room. The Pro Bowl is about to come on TV. And I go to ESPN. And I go to these major news outlets. Nothing. And then I get the notification on my phone from Woj, who delivered the most tragic Woj bomb that I've ever seen, that said that, yes, it is true. He can confirm Kobe Bryant died in a helicopter crash. About 45 minutes to an hour later, we find out his 13-year-old daughter, Gigi, she's also gone. She passed in that crash, as well as the other people. And I don't want to gloss over them. I want to highlight these people too. Alyssa Altobelli, who was a teammate of Gigi's, her parents, John and Carrie Altobelli. You obviously had Peyton Chester, her mother, Sarah Chester. Peyton was one of Gianna's teammates as well at the Mamba Academy. Christina Mauser, who I believe was a coach on the team, and Ara Zabayan, who was the pilot of the helicopter. And so you just spend the rest of the day like getting your thoughts together, like, how? I mean, we hear occasionally when a celebrity or a well-known person passes away and they've had a long illness, or straight up they're in old age. We're sad. It's nostalgic. We think about, the impact, whether we met them or not, that they had in our lives. But for Kobe to go like that, to where we're celebrating him just the day prior when LeBron passed him in the scoring list, and then he's gone, that it can't work like that. And so, honestly, personally, for me, it was one of, and of course, the pandemic started. Excuse me. The pandemic started about a month and a half later, and it was kind of a wake-up call, like, dang, this life really is short. And I don't want to get too depressing or, morbid or anything like that, but it's like, we don't have forever here. And it taught me, enjoy the moment. Be with the people who care about you. Hug your friends, hug your family, tell them you love them, because you don't know. You think Vanessa Bryant, you think his 3 daughters, the oldest especially being of age to of course be aware of things going on, you think they hugged and kissed Kobe and Gigi and would never see them again? I mean, that doesn't even cross your mind when you're around somebody. And so what it comes down to is enjoy life, enjoy the people you get to spend it with, because, man, it's fragile. It is, those out there know I've talked about my faith often. I'm a Christian, and in the Bible it says, I think even Christians, non-Christians, we can all agree with this. Life is a vapor. I mean, it is here today and it's gone tomorrow. And so, just kind of my message and what I've taken from Kobe's passing 2 years ago yesterday is tell people you love them. Treat people the right way. You don't ever know what somebody's going through. Because at the end of the day, we're all sharing the same life. Might as well at least make an effort to get along. We're really not that much different than we think. Yeah, maybe our skin color is different. Maybe we have different political ideologies, a different religious background or beliefs, or a different sexual orientation, or a different socioeconomic status. We're all in the same boat together in this game of life. And what I respected about Kobe so much is not just in the game of basketball, but in his 41 years on this earth, gave everything he had. He forged relationships. Was he tough to play with at times with the Lakers? Oh yeah, very much so. But he would always, similar to Michael Jordan, if he didn't think that you could help him get to the top, or if he didn't think that you could be we're putting in the necessary work and effort to be the best you could be, he didn't want anything to do with you. Because Kobe was about one thing. One thing, being the best. He wanted to be the greatest basketball player ever. He wanted to be the greatest author ever. The man won a freaking Oscar. And most of all, he wanted to be the greatest dad ever and husband ever. He was a girl dad. And so, even 2 years later, still don't seem real that he's actually gone. So, I don't know, just trying to process it even to this day. I know, Kobe was the only part I really could tolerate about the Lakers. Yeah, he broke the hearts of my Golden State Warriors at times, especially in his prime. But I just had so much respect for his drive, his killer will. I mean, the Kobe stories are the stuff of legend. Heck, some of the Kobe stories we witnessed, you can look at them up on YouTube. Remember the game that he tore his rotator cuff his second to last year in the league, and he started shooting with his left hand? You don't do that, but he did. He wanted to stay out there. His last game especially. Now, he took a million shots, took like 50, 54 shots, whatever it was. Man scored 60. He scored like 37 in the second half alone, running on fumes. Staples Center was going crazy over a Lakers team that barely won double-digit games. They were awful. That's the effect Kobe had on people. And so, the fact that he's gone, his daughter Gigi gone even sooner than that at the age of 13. 2 other girls and moms, dads, husbands, wives. It's devastating. It's nothing short of devastating. And so, but I think what will carry Kobe's individually, his legacy forward and throughout the course of all time, certainly in basketball. But we saw when he passed away, the outpouring of support was far bigger than basketball. Did you watch the Grammys that night? Because the Grammys were the same night. It was actually at the Staples Center. The Grammys were hosted by Alicia Keys the day that Kobe and the 8 others passed away. And it was like the whole mood was gone. There was no spirit in there. Everybody in the basketball world, outside of it, were crushed. And that's for so many reasons. And so I think legacy-wise, what will always carry the Mamba mentality is that. Because it relates to everybody. It was something we can all relate to. You know? You want to be the best at something? Work your tail off at it. Put every ounce that you have into it. And be the best. If you find something you love, pursue it. Work hard. That's what Kobe was about. Everything he did, far beyond basketball. Put everything you have into whatever you're doing. And eventually, you will be successful. And so, that is the Mamba mentality. And that's how I'll remember him. I'll remember him for how he, was an amazing dad and husband to Vanessa. And it's just so tragic and devastating that he's gone. It's tragic and devastating that the others are gone. So for Kobe individually, the Mamba mentality will be something that will carry on for decades and decades and decades from now. And then for all the victims and their families, just keep them in your hearts and prayers right now. Because I'm sure this is tough for them, as it would be for anybody. So rest in peace, Kobe Bryant, Gigi Bryant, and the others. Peyton Chester, Sarah Chester, Alyssa Altabelli, John Altabelli, Carrie Altabelli, Aria Zabayan, and Christina Mauser. Rest in peace. Okay. Again, you want to talk about a hard transition. It's hard to transition from that to a sports topic. But think that's what Kobe would want us to do. So let's rock and roll. So 2 days ago, about 48 hours ago, we got the news of who the next baseball Hall of Famer would be. Hall of Famer, singular, not plural. We only got one. And it was my man, Big Papi, David Ortiz, the reason, along with Dustin Pedroia, why I became a Red Sox fan. David Ortiz, numbers speak for themselves. Over 500 homers. 3-time World Series champion. World Series MVP. In my view, the second greatest Boston Red Sox player ever to Ted Williams. Ted Williams is, of course, the gold standard of Boston Red Sox players. I put Papi over Carl Yastrzemski because as great as Yastrzemski was and as long as he played, forget Red Sox, how many athletes made as big an impact in the city of Boston as David Ortiz? It's not many. I mean, Larry Bird, obviously Tom Brady, some of the great players that have played with the Bruins and the Celtics and the Red Sox and the Patriots. But, excuse me, Big Papi sort of, as a kid from the Dominican Republic getting traded to the Red Sox in 2003, he embraced the city. He became what that city is all about. Toughness, hard work, kind of a little edge to you, a little feisty. And in my opinion, David Ortiz is the clutchest player in baseball history this side of Reggie Jackson, for all I care about. I mean, think about the clutch hits this guy in the playoffs. Going back to 2004, clutch hit after clutch hit after clutch hit in the ALCS as the Red Sox became the first and still to this point only team to come back from down 3-0 in a best-of-7 series in baseball history, and they did it against the arch-rival New York Yankees. What makes that even more significant is that helped break the curse of the Bambino in 2004. And the Red Sox won their first World Series title in 86 years. Helped the Red Sox win it again in 2007. Led the Red Sox in 2013, especially after the tragedy with the Boston Marathon, in order to get to the World Series against the St. Louis Cardinals and win it. And so, Big Papi, congratulations. And well-deserved. I couldn't be happier. He's one of my favorite athletes of all time from one of my favorite teams. I couldn't be more thrilled for David Ortiz. Couldn't be more thrilled. However, there were some notable snubs off the list, as we all know. Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens, the most notable, and even Alex Rodriguez, which doesn't really surprise any of us. But when it comes to the Baseball Hall of Fame, it really is one of the biggest jokes in the world of sports. Not the Hall of Famers that are in it necessarily, but I could see maybe in these coming years to where it starts to become something like that. Because when you think about how they go about this Hall of Fame voting process, it's really cute to me. It really is. I love baseball. Always have, always will. It was my first love in sports. My dad played baseball. I played Little League. I love the game. Love it. Always have, always will till the day I die. But my biggest criticism of baseball, and particularly Major League Baseball, is more than any sport and more than any league, boy, are they stuck in their ways. Boy, do they operate and have the mentality of like the 1950s and 60s. Heck, that's the only baseball players you hear about. No disrespect to the great Mickey Mantle. I hear about Mickey Mantle more than I do Mike Trout or Shohei Ohtani or Mookie Betts. Is that there's not an emphasis on promoting the great players today. There's this Keep the tradition. No, I'm not like anti-tradition at all, but that word just makes me roll my eyes. And what I think is funny about this Hall of Fame thing is that these baseball writers who keep Bonds, Clemens, A-Rod, Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire, we could go on, out of the Hall of Fame, is that there's this sort of self-righteous, holier-than-thou sort of mentality. We must keep the game pure. In the Hall of Fame, this sacred, pure museum. More on the museum part later. When, in all actuality, and this is the case in life, you know somebody who's got this holier-than-thou mentality? Or those in public life who have that? Oftentimes, this has been proved, it's them who have the biggest skeletons in their closet. And Major League Baseball might as well have a cemetery in their closet compared to other sports. No sport, and it's not even close, has a history and a reputation of cheating more than baseball. None. We can go from the 1919 Black Sox all the way 98 years later to the 2017 Houston Astros. And all in between. It is the biggest stain on Major League. Actually, I would say it's the second biggest stain to the fact that how they treated black players and Latino players coming into the sport. How they treated Jackie Robinson. How my biggest disgust of the Boston Red Sox, even as a fan, is that they were the last team to integrate. The last team to sign a black player. They don't want you to remember that. The writers don't. But they act like the steroids is just, oh my goodness, it is a crime on the sport. Am I excusing steroids? Not in the slightest. Here's my issue. If you're going to leave Bonds out, and you're going to leave McGwire out, and Sosa out, and Clemens out, you have to kick out every single player in the steroid era. You cannot let one in. Because let's be real. Everybody in that time period was roided up. They were. That was what the era called for. And eventually, the commissioner at the time, Bud Selig, made it the virtual death sentence punishment of Major League Baseball that has continued to this day. That's what it is. But when we have this sort of, again, self-righteous mentality of the Hall of Fame that, oh, only certain guys go in because we want to maintain the purity of the sport. What purity? Oh, what are you talking about? Baseball has had more scandals than any league in American pro sports. And it ain't even close. I mean, let's just say, let me just put it in a vacuum. Make it as simple as possible. If you were talking to somebody about the leaders, right? The kings of each statistical category in different sports, right? If you want to talk about, in the NFL, who's got the most rushing yards? It's Emmitt Smith. Who's got the most passing yards and passing touchdowns? It's Tom Brady. Who's got the most receiving yards? It's Jerry Rice by a mile. Who's got the most sacks? It's Bruce Smith. All these different numbers in the NFL. They would automatically assume, oh, well, yeah, duh. If there's a Hall of Fame, they're in it. Duh. I mean, come on. Just go and put them in right now. Which, yeah, Emmitt Smith's in the Hall of Fame, and Bruce Smith, and Jerry Rice, and Tom Brady. In my opinion, I've said this before, I think they should disregard the whole first ballot thing. Just go and put him in if he retires this year. Just go and put him in right now. He's the most obvious Hall of Famer ever. What if I told you that in Major League Baseball, in the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York, that the all-time leader in hits, home runs, and Cy Young Awards, none of those guys were in the Hall of Fame? It makes me laugh. It's actually kind of funny that the leaders in these categories. Now, look, if you want to talk about Bonds and Hank Aaron and say Hank Aaron's the home run king, I concur. I agree with you. I will always know Hank Aaron and regard him as the home run king. But Bonds does have the record. And Roger Clemens does have 7 Cy Youngs. Okay. And Pete Rose does have 4,256 hits. That stuff kind of matters. Being a great pitcher, that usually wins you World Series if you have a good run support behind you. And if you put the ball in the air and into the seats, usually means you're pretty good. And especially if you get hits a lot, isn't that kind of what baseball is about offensively, is getting on base in the most simplest form in doing so is getting a hit? I mean, come on. I mean, Pete Rose, 17-time All-Star, 3-time World Series champion, World Series MVP, NL Rookie of the Year, 2-time Gold Glove winner, Silver Slugger winner, Roberto Clemente Award, 3-time batting champion, all-time leader in hits. No, we're going to keep him out because he gambled. Am I excusing that he gambled as a player? No. But was he like those Black Sox in betting against his own team? That would be different if he was betting against his own Cincinnati Reds, the Big Red Machine of the 70s. But he wasn't. He gambled as a manager. So because he gambled as manager, we're just going to disregard his entire playing career and ban him from the Hall of Fame. We know what's going to happen is that Mr. Rose is going to pass away one day, then we'll put him in. Then we'll put him in before he gets to witness it. And years down the road, we'll put Bonds in. When the kids of that day is like, who's Barry Bonds? Who is that? And who's Roger Clemens? These guys can't have their time in the sun. Because they're the only guys who have ever cheated in the history of Major League Baseball. Only guys. That's it. That's it. And if you want to throw out Curt Schilling, fine. As a Red Sox fan, I could care less if Curt Schilling is in the Hall of Fame or if he's out the Hall of Fame. Because he's a racist crazy head, okay? He's an idiot. I could care less if that guy's in the Hall of Fame. But in regards to Alex Rodriguez, who I don't like, never have liked A-Rod, especially as a Sox fan, A-Rod's a Hall of Famer. Stop. He's got multiple MVPs. He's a Hall of Famer. Pete Rose is a Hall of Famer. Okay, Barry Bonds, pre-steroids, was a Hall of Famer. So we're just going to completely disregard his entire career just because he took steroids. Really? Roger Clemens was great before steroids. Steroids really just elongated his career. Sosa and McGwire saved baseball with the home run chase of 1998. People were interested. People tuned in. The ratings were big. Yeah, it's great. No, but no, we're going to kick you out the Hall of Fame. Really? Really? Again, the writers for this are an absolute joke. The fact that, and I get the people out there who say, well, you got baseball and they're trying to preserve this sort of, I guess, quote unquote, gentleman sort of, I don't know what. But no sport has more skeletons in their closet than Major League Baseball. Some ain't even in the closet. Some are out the closet, right? All the cheating scandals. And they dealt with racism worse than any sport in the 20th century. But we must have integrity. Stop. It's a museum. This is where people are going to go to Cooperstown to learn more about the greatest players in the history of the sport. That's what Hall of Fames are for. What do we talk about all the time when, and I'm going to talk about Ben Roethlisberger later in the show. What do we talk about when a great player retires or a former great player retires? Are they a Hall of Famer? And what's the number one question that always comes up in response? Well, can you tell the story of the game without them? You're telling me you could tell the story of baseball without Barry Bonds, who was intentionally walked walked in general over 200 times in a season one time. They walked him over 200 times. There was one instance where the San Francisco Giants are down by 2 runs. In the bottom of the 9th inning, there are 2 outs, and the bases are loaded. They intentionally walked Bonds to bring a run across. They're like, we would rather let a run score than you bat against us, mind you, with 2 outs. So no sacrifice flies in play. It's a joke. It is actually laughable. It'd be laughable if it wasn't sad. It's a museum. We're telling the story of the game. You can't tell the story of the game without the guys I just mentioned. You can't. It's ridiculous. The Pete Rose one is what makes me mad more than any of them. I mean, I'm pissed that Bonds and Clemens and Sosa, McGuire, again, who made baseball relevant. Okay, 1994, they literally had a strike midseason, canceled the World Series. There was no champion that year. The sport was dead throughout the mid-1990s. And when Sammy Sosa, Mark McGuire of the Chicago Cubs and the St. Louis Cardinals, respectively, were in their home run chase, 2 rival teams, 2 of the greatest power hitters we've ever seen. Who's going to win? Who's going to win? Who does? Brought excitement, which baseball purists seem to be opposed to. Don't show emotion, right? We don't want to be too excited. We have to, kind of sit in our seats and just clap. It's like, guys, it's fun. It's a game. These are the same people that get mad at guys who celebrate after a home run. Same. Lord have mercy. I mean, I'm sorry. If the guy who has the most home runs ever, the guy who has the most hits ever, and the guy who has the most Cy Youngs ever, if they're not in the Hall of Fame, I don't even know how you have Hall of Fame at that point. Those are about as important numbers. It's like it's not like this meaningless record. These meaningless records, these tell the story of the game. Isn't that the point of the Hall of Fame? To respect and celebrate great players in the history of the sport, as well as, tell the story of baseball. People don't want to talk about the fact that one of the greatest pitchers ever, Ty Cobb of the Detroit Tigers, was about one of the worst human beings and biggest racists in the sports history. But steroids are just, you can't have them in the Hall of Fame. Really? I'm not in any way advocating saying Ty Cobb should be out of the Hall of Fame. I don't agree with just about anything that man ever said in his life. We're talking about a baseball career on the field, on the diamond. Were you the best? Can the story of the game be told without you? And the answer for all the guys I just mentioned are a big fat no. Yeah, it pisses me off. It really, really does. Okay. Let's see if I can move on from that. What else okay. Sean Payton. This is a fascinating one. So Sean Payton notified the Saints about a week ago, sort of a timeline of events. Okay, the Saints finished 9-8 this year. They, played 4 quarterbacks. I said Sean Payton did an outstanding job. I thought it would it have been fair had the Saints made the playoffs this year to say Sean Payton is at least in the running for Coach of the Year? Absolutely not. I mean, think about who the quarterbacks were. Jameis Winston, who I still believe can be a serviceable quarterback. Unfortunately, he tore his ACL a few games, midway through the season. You have you have Taysom Hill, who's not even he's not a quarterback. Okay, I like Taysom Hill. He's a nice gadget player. He's not a quarterback. He's not. He's got a weird throwing motion, kind of like Tebow. Not in the same way as Tebow, but that does not win games in the NFL with that throwing motion if you're asked to throw a team back into the game. Then you have guys like Trevor Siemian, who's been a career journeyman backup. And you have guys like even poor Ian Book. I felt terrible for the poor kid being thrown out there on Monday Night Football because the Saints had a COVID outbreak. It was a lot of chaos at the most important position in sports. Saints weathered it through. And they went 9-8. They had a winning record, right? So I thought Sean Payton did a really good job this year. But he notified the Saints a week ago that he kind of mulls options. And a couple days ago, he announced he's stepping away from football for a little bit. He's stepping away from the New Orleans Saints. Now, Sean Payton is a guy that I've always regarded as one of the 3 or 4 best offensive coaches in the league. The way I'd rank the best head coaches, I should specify. The best head coaches in the NFL, I would rank it Andy Reid. Andy Reid is the gold standard of offensive coaches in the NFL. He just is. He's done it for the longest. He's been the most consistent. He's won 1 million games, right? Now that he has a superstar quarterback, he's finally, getting to enjoy the fruits of his efforts of finally getting to and winning a Super Bowl. But Andy Reid's number 1. I think Kyle Shanahan's number 2. Listen, I like Jimmy G. I do. He's not. He alone is not good enough to get the 49ers to a Super Bowl. Okay? Kyle Shanahan has done a masterful job with the 49ers. Sean McVay at 3rd. Keep in mind, remember how bad and how dysfunctional and kind of a joke that the Rams were as a franchise before he got there? He gets there. They have had a losing season since. They have a Super Bowl appearance. They may have another Super Bowl appearance in a few days. And then 4th, I'd say Sean Payton. The guy, with the Saints organization, he deserves about as much credit as Breeze, in my opinion. I think it goes 50-50 because a franchise that was called the Aints. Yeah, they were a joke. I mean, they had fans wearing paper bags over their heads. It's kind of sad, right? He, along with Breeze, first of all, they helped rebuild an entire community after Hurricane Katrina. They contributed in major ways to the city through charitable efforts, and they won a Super Bowl. And so when you talk about Sean Payton as the Saints head coach, you have to acknowledge all those things. And, has there been a team that has had as much bad luck as the Saints over the last half decade? I mean, come on. You win your division in 2017. Drew Brees has a great year, and the defense finally arises. And you lose on a 61-yard touchdown fluke play on the Minneapolis Miracle. What? A year later, although I said at the time, I will say now, I've said it on shows in the past, it wasn't the reason they lost, but boy, was it bad luck. And that was the missed pass interference call against the Rams late in the 4th quarter of that NFC Championship game. Because if it gets called, the Saints probably go on to the Super Bowl. A year later, they lose to Minnesota again in overtime at home. A year after that, Drew Brees falls apart physically. They destroy the Buccaneers twice in the regular season, only to have a home playoff game and kind of get taken apart in the second half. And so Sean Payton has stepped away from the Saints. I'm here to tell y'all, I may be finally getting my wish as a fan, kind of the Dallas Cowboys, but of this little guy, Dak Prescott. He may be getting an actual head coach coming in pretty soon. Not this year. Got to deal with Mike McCarthy now for another season. Got to deal with some bad clock management and questionable, leadership sort of stuff he tries with the team with monkey butt powder and smashing. It's a joke. Smashing watermelons. Harry High School and Charlie F. Brown. He don't work here. You got to deal with some bad motivation, some bad clock management for another season. Got to suffer through it for another season. But my man, Rain Dakota Prescott's getting him a new head coach pretty soon. It's coming in 2023. How do I know this? Do I have any sourcing? No, I don't really have any connections in the sourcing world and the journalist world. What I do have is an excerpt from a book by Mike Florio. Mike Florio is the host of Pro Football Talk on NBC. And there's an excerpt from his book that says, in early 2019, shortly after the Dallas Cowboys lost their playoff game to the Los Angeles Rams, Jerry Jones, the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, Gail Benson, the owner of the New Orleans Saints, struck up a deal that was going to send Sean Payton to the Dallas Cowboys. They'd agreed to the deal. And apparently, what was going to be traded in the deal, whether it was going to be draft picks, money, whatever it was going to be. The deal was pretty much in place. And then the Lakers screwed it up. You said, what do the Lakers got to do with the Cowboys and the Saints? I'll explain. Anthony Davis, still a member at the time of the New Orleans Pelicans, asked for a trade. He wanted to go to the Lakers. And Mickey Loomis, the general manager of the Saints and a prominent member of the front office with the Pelicans, was like, Lord, my reputation would be in the gutter if Sean Payton and Anthony Davis left New Orleans basically simultaneously. I cannot let that happen. And so he basically told Jerry and told the Cowboys, like, I'm sorry, I'm going to lose AD. I can't lose Sean Payton along with him. This will be terrible for my image, terrible for my reputation, and it would pretty much cost me my job when it was all said and done. Because I would be remembered as the guy who traded AD and traded Sean Payton. Like, I can't, and Drew Brees doesn't have much longer left to play at that point either. No. Which, I can't get mad at Mickey Loomis. I get it. He's trying to save his job. He's done an amazing job with the Saints. Look at those draft picks that they've accumulated and produced into great talents on the field for them. Okay, Mickey Loomis is a great general manager. So I don't blame him for doing what he did. But thanks, Lakers. Thanks, LeBron. Thanks, AD, for screwing this up. But the bottom line to all that is Sean Payton would like to come to Dallas. Of course, we all know he was on Bill Parcells' coaching staff from 2003 to 2005. He was close with Tony Romo. As a matter of fact, it was Sean Payton who convinced Jerry Jones, or at least persuaded Jerry Jones, to sign Tony Romo as an undrafted free agent out of Eastern Illinois. Now, while Romo drove me crazy, I think it's pretty safe to say Sean Payton made the right bet there because the Cowboys had a franchise quarterback for the next decade because of it, starting in 2006. So, Sean Payton wants to come to Dallas. Apparently I heard Skip Bayless talking about it, that before the Cowboys played the Saints on a Thursday night football game about a month and a half ago, Jerry Jones and his son Stephen Jones were being interviewed on the field, hours before kickoff. Sean Payton came out in the field and photobombed a selfie and was yucking it up with them and chopping it up. He's interested. And a source close to the Cowboys even said he doesn't have an eye on the Cowboys. He may have more than one eye on America's team. So, when it's all said and done, here's what I think is going to happen. Right, I predicted Tom Brady's future on Monday's show. I'm going to predict Sean Payton's. By all accounts, he's going to get a job in television soon. And I could see him being pretty good on television, right? Because he's got the personality. Obviously, he's a very smart football guy. Certainly has the ring to show for it. It could work. I really do. I think it could work. 2023 comes around. He's rejuvenated. He's ready to go. He'll be around 60 at that point. And the Dallas Cowboys will bring in Sean Payton as the new head coach to help Dak Prescott and the Cowboys get to and hopefully win a Super Bowl when it's all said and done. Oh, I got good feelings about this. I got good feelings. I really do. By the way, sorry about my voice. I've had this cough for like a week. Don't worry. I tested negative for COVID. Don't worry about it. But I don't know, man. My back of my throat is like, it's shaky. It's shaky right now. I don't know what's going on. I'm trying to drink some Gatorade right now to clear it out. But hey, it happens, man. It's January. Let's move on now to a very interesting story. And that involves James Harden. So James Harden, by the way, played great 2 nights ago against the Los Angeles Lakers, a nationally televised game. Obviously, LeBron was the star of the show. He led the Lakers in Anthony Davis's return to a 10-point win in Brooklyn. But James Harden scored 33 points and had a triple-double. I mean, it's one of maybe the best game that James Harden's played all season long. He certainly had a down year in regards to scoring, and pretty much all of his numbers are, not where they have been over the last few years when he's been an MVP candidate year in, year out. But a story came out saying that he was dissatisfied with the Brooklyn Nets, and he is a free agent this coming summer, and he's probably going to end up moving on. Because remember, last offseason, it's funny, there was more speculation about whether Steph Curry would sign his extension with the Warriors, or if he would say, let me give it one more year and see if maybe y'all are going the right direction or not, and I may sign elsewhere to try and go compete for championships. But ultimately, Steph knew what was cooking in Golden State, of course. He signed with the Warriors, and we're rolling. Now, Steph's not rolling. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on with Steph Curry right now. He's in the worst shooting slump of his life, but he'll get it back together. Point is, Warriors are good. James Harden, everybody's like, oh, KD signed an extension. He's here for the long haul. We know Kyrie here and there is here for the long haul. And so it's like, okay, James wanted to come here, play with his boys. Oh, no, he didn't. I got to be honest. I don't blame James Harden. And y'all know, I'm not a James Harden apologist in the slightest. I called Aaron Rodgers on Monday, James Harden with the ring in the playoffs. That's not a compliment to James Harden. That's saying they're both horrible come postseason time when you compare them to their regular season selves. Okay, I bashed James Harden show after spring and summer playoff show about his disappearances in the postseason. But what he signed up for in Brooklyn, he has not gotten. Because look, what in Brooklyn is reliable with the Nets? Seriously. Kyrie's the most unreliable star in regards to availability in basketball. Because he's got injury issues. He also, right now, he can't play home games. And road games, he's struggled in some games he's played well, but in others, he's kind of struggled to build somewhat of a rhythm. So it's like, gosh, is this going to work? By the way, the report said that Harden was frustrated with Kyrie. And matter of fact, there have been some press conferences where James Harden has expressed a little bit of frustration, a little bit of kind of backhanded stuff thrown in there about, yeah, sure wish Kyrie was here. Wish he'd get his vaccine and show up and play for us. He's frustrated. Okay, you had that. The report also talked about his frustrations with Steve Nash and his rotations. And that, I said when Steve Nash was hired, I was like, this is a weird hire. Like, Steve Nash has never coached in his life. No one ever really discussed him as a head coach, at least from what I heard outside of Brooklyn. Like, this is one of those you're like, I don't know about this one. And thus far, Steve Nash got out coached by Mike Budenholzer. Y'all know I'm not a Mike Budenholzer fan the slightest. He was like the butt of every joke on the show last postseason, even when the Bucks won the championship. And Mike Budenholzer coached circles around Steve Nash. So it's fair to say James Harden's like, yeah, Steve, you go with some pretty small lineups sometimes. Okay, you're asking at times for KD when he's healthy to play the 5. Physically, KD can't play the 5. Heck, physically, but in the long term, LeBron can't play the 5. And that was my last point. It was with KD. Y'all know I love KD. I have great respect for him and gratitude for him for the 3 years that he was with my Warriors and winning 2 championships and winning 2 finals MVPs. And I love watching that man play basketball. He's the most gifted scorer of the basketball I've ever seen. I've said that over and over on this show. To me, it's kind of an underreported story. The guy can't stay healthy. I mean, he's over the last few years of his career has had some real injury problems. We can go back to 2015 after he won his only NBA MVP when he broke his foot. We can go to a couple years after that his first year with the Warriors, in the last 3 months of a season, he hurt his knee and was out for like 2 months. We can go to last year in Brooklyn when he dealt with, I think he dealt with a groin issue and an ab issue and problems with his legs. And now this year, he's out with an MCL sprain, I believe it is. He's out 4 to 6 weeks, I think. So James Harden, in fairness to him, and maybe this is just karma being you-know-what, maybe this is just him kind of getting what he's deserved and how he forced his way out of Houston. But as far as what he was signing up for in Brooklyn, this wasn't it. He was like, okay, I'm coming to Brooklyn so we can be a big three and go win a championship, because I need a championship on my resume. I don't want to be on the Charles Barkley, Reggie Miller, Patrick Ewing list. No disrespect to those great players, but I don't want to be on the list of the greatest players to never win a ring. That's why KD went to Golden State. Okay? James, guys, I got to get a championship. I've got my MVP. I've got the scoring numbers and this and that. I got to get a ring. Okay? I can't go the rest of my career scoring 1 million points but falling short in the playoffs time after time and have people hold this over my head forever. I got to get me some jewelry. And the guys, his teammates, haven't been there. His head coach is ill-equipped to handle this. Kyrie is gone for vaccine reasons, injury reasons. Kevin Durant is gone for injury reasons. Frankly, and my guy Barry pointed this out to me earlier I think earlier this week or last week, the Nets are an old roster. And so you look at Brooklyn, James Harden said, I came here to play with the big three. They played like 20 games together in a year. 20. How many times have we seen these three on the court at the same time? Not much. I can count on my finger the number of times I remember it. And most of them were playoff games last year. They haven't been able to build any chemistry. I don't blame James. Now, where would he go? Philadelphia is the most discussed spot. I heard Kendrick Perkins, a former teammate of James Harden, who's a great media analyst for ESPN, but he was talking about, Perk was talking about, what I'm hearing, Philly's the most likely destination with Joel Embiid, which I think that would work. I think Harden and Embiid would fit better than Simmons and Embiid. And it also came out that the Nets are apparently not going to trade Harden, even though they know he's probably going to leave in free agency. Maybe they're saying, look, if we're going to lose Harden, at least we got KD and Kyrie for road games. Let's just go after it now. We're going to lose James. Yes, we can get a lot for him. Let's just go after it now. And I don't know if I necessarily condemn that for the Nets. Now, you could say, okay, the Boston side of things. Remember when Kyrie was in Boston in 2019 and everybody knew he was going to leave? I said I would have traded him because of the issues he was causing the locker room. James hasn't caused any issues in the locker room. That's never really been his shtick, is being a bad teammate. Kyrie was that in Boston. So my thing for the Celtics is like, yeah, you can try and go win a championship with him, but first of all, you're not, because he doesn't fit and the locker room's in disarray. Get what you can get for him. But no, the Celtics came up empty-handed, and rumors are coming out. They may be in a rebuild pretty soon if they trade Tatum and Jaylen Brown. So for the Nets not trading Harden, they're saying, I mean, crap, we've barely seen this tandem on this trio on the court together. Let's see if it can work come playoff time. I've said religiously on the show that it's not going to work. I didn't like the Harden trade when it was made. Now, I didn't think they wouldn't play together hardly at all, but that's what's happened. And I don't necessarily blame James for being frustrated. Okay, let's move on to a couple of head coaching hires that have been made. You've got Matt Eberflus was hired by the Chicago Bears to be their next head coach. Let me start with him. He was with the Colts for a while. Months ago, he was like the hottest candidate. He was the most talked about candidate to be a head coach in the National Football League with, a team of his choice. and he chose the Chicago Bears. I like Matt Eberflus. Like I do. I think he's a really good coach. I think he's got a chance to be successful in Chicago. But I would have brought in an offensive mind for Justin Fields. Now, let's see who Matt Eberflus brings in as his offensive coordinator. Because there have been defensive coaches that have won in the NFL with great offensive coordinators. Look at Buffalo, right? Sean McDermott, great defensive head coach. Brian Daboll's his offensive coordinator. Look how that's worked out with Josh Allen. So you can bring a great offensive mind in to handle that side of things and still be fine. I just was looking at, okay, you could bring in Brian Daboll. Byron Leftwich is an option. Like, I feel like there were more options that would have worked better for their young quarterback, because ultimately that's what it's going to come down to. That's why they hired a new general manager, is to say, we have our young quarterback. We got to develop him and see what we can do. Because this is our franchise guy. This is the guy we believe can eventually take us to the next level. I've said that on the show. I think he's capable of doing that. But he does need some development. So I'm going to be very interested to see who Matt Eberflus brings in as his OC to help develop Justin Fields. I don't dislike the hire. I think Matt Eberflus can be a very good head coach. But equally, I want Justin Fields to do well, because I think the kid has all the potential in the world. He's got the arm strength. Accuracy has come and gone a little bit, but obviously we all know he's a great runner with the football. He's shown really, really good leadership intangibles. Like he's got all the makings to be a really successful quarterback in this league. So, like I said, OC is going to be a very interesting hire for the Bears in the coming days and weeks. Now looking at the Denver Broncos, who have found their new head coach. This came out this morning. They hired the Packers offensive coordinator, Nathaniel Hackett. People close to him, including Aaron Rodgers, they call him Nate Hackett. Now, this hire I really like, because in the AFC West, you've got spectacular quarterback play. It's the best quarterback division in football. Pat Mahomes is the best quarterback in football, period. So, of course, he's the best in his division. Justin Herbert is special. And Derek Carr, y'all know I'm like Derek Carr is on the same level as Dak to me. I love him. Love Derek Carr. I think he's outstanding. What he pulled off this year with a dumpster fire around him. That was the Las Vegas Raiders, and getting them to the playoffs. By the way, nearly beating Cincinnati in the playoff game. Outstanding. Doesn't get enough credit for how good he is. You're going to need, obviously, along with a new franchise quarterback, you're going to need an offensive coach to compete with those guys, to keep up with them. You have to have that. So Nathaniel Hackett, who has a good reputation around the league, heck, he was the offensive coordinator in Jacksonville and helped Blake Bortles get to the AFC Championship game and nearly won it. I mean, think about that. Blake Bortles, say this out loud, Blake Bortles was a quarter away from beating Tom Brady on the road to go to the Super Bowl. Like, that's how good Nathaniel Hackett is. I mean, Blake Bortles is a backup. And so, I mean, I think in Green Bay, he was like the third string behind Jordan Love and, of course, Aaron Rodgers. It's like, dang, I saw how Jordan Love looked, and he's above Blake Bortles. Jeez, this guy's terrible. Yeah, he helped him get to the AFC Championship game. So I really almost borderline love this hire for Denver. Now, the next step for them is getting a quarterback. Now, what people have discussed is, well, okay, for the Broncos, they got the offensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers. Is it possible they'll get the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers? I think it's possible. My guess is no. I don't think it happens. My man John says maybe Rodgers. I think Aaron's going to retire. My gut tells me Aaron's going to retire. Because he would, listen, if he does go to Denver, yes, the roster's really good. Like I've talked about that with Denver. They got a really good roster. Melvin Gordon's a great back, and they got a really good offensive line, some excellent skill position players. Denver doesn't get enough credit for how good their skill position players are, maybe because their quarterback play has been so marginal that we haven't really gotten a chance to recognize it. But you got Tim Patrick and Cortland Sutton, Noah Fant's an excellent tight end. Defensively, they traded Von Miller. They've still got playmakers. Bradley Chubb is a great pass rusher. Patrick Surtain is everything I thought he'd be in the league. It's why I wanted the Cowboys to select him until the Broncos selected him, and thank God we got Micah Parsons. But Pat Surtain has been outstanding. They got some real playmakers in that defense and in that secondary. So they've got the roster. But the thing for Aaron Rodgers is he's also got a really good roster in Green Bay. He's also in a crappy division in Green Bay. I mean, think about this. In the NFC North, 6 of his games are against Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff, and a young Justin Fields. He goes to the AFC West. He'll be facing Patrick Mahomes, Justin Fields, and Derek Carr. A little bit of a gap there. So I don't know if Aaron's going to take that in consideration, but I think he should. I think he should. John says he agrees. He said he's 50-50 on Aaron retiring, 60-40 on Tom retiring. I'm starting to lean your direction on Tom. Way he's talking lately, I would be surprised if he plays next year. And that hurts for me, man. I love Brady. He's one of my favorite athletes ever. I don't want to see him go, especially the way he's playing. Still looks like he's in his prime at 44 years old. But listen, if he wants to call it quits, hey, mad respect to him. But I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to Denver. I really genuinely don't. So for the Bears, I mean, look, so far we got 2 head coach hirings, and now we have 7 openings now that Sean Payton has stepped away. And by the way, Dan Quinn staying with the Cowboys, I did not think that was going to happen. But Dan Quinn told the Cowboys that I'm staying. I'm going to be the defensive coordinator. So the Cowboys will have a more than competent defense next year. I thought it was an overachieving defense who simply has a superstar defensive rookie, the unanimous defensive rookie of the year, as far as I'm concerned, in Micah Parsons, a guy who is already easily a top 10 defensive player in football, or maybe top 5 because of his versatility. I still have my doubts about Trayvon Diggs. Well, he got all the interceptions. Yeah, he also gets burned on double moves every play. The safety unit is it's shaky. Right? You got KZ. Now, I like Curse, but the back end of the defense concerns me. You have Randy Gregory, who's a free agent. DeMarcus Lawrence, who's no longer a good pass rusher, but he is still a very good run stopper. I like Neville Gallimore, although he's more of a pass rushing defensive tackle than he is a run stopper. And the linebacking unit is fine. I mean, you got Leighton Vander Esch, but he's also a free agent. So it's going to be interesting to see where the Cowboys go, with some of those guys as free agents on defense. But you got Dan Quinn coming back. You still got Micah Parsons. So you should still be good. And especially they'll be more used to that system, which will be, huge for them. So we got 7 head coaching openings in the NFL. We had 9. 2 were taken. Chicago hired Matt Eberflus. Like it. I like Matt Eberflus. I just don't know if it's the right hire and fit for the Bears. And then as for, Nathaniel Hackett to Denver, love it. Absolutely love it. Because you're, of course, going to need that quarterback to come in because, newsflash, Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater are not the guy. You're going to need that quarterback to come in and compete with Pat Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Derek Carr. But now you've got the offensive head coach. You got half of the puzzle. Now you just need to complete it. So I really like what Denver's doing. I listen, right now, I wouldn't be shocked. I would almost lean for, Denver getting to the playoffs next year. Like, I really would. Honestly. Because I think they're better run than the Chargers. I think they now have a better coach than the Chargers, even though, Hackett hasn't coached a game as a head coach yet, and Brandon Staley has. But when Brandon Staley showed me, I was like, gosh, especially the way he blew that game at the end against the Raiders. I don't even know, man. I don't even know. So if I had to give it a letter grade for the Bears, I would say a C+ higher. Like Eberflus, don't like the fit for the Bears. And then as for Hackett, Nathaniel Hackett, I won't give it an A+. It's not a home run because he's never coached yet, so we don't know. But right now, I call it an A. I think it's an A higher. You just need the quarterback now. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be Rodgers. I don't think it is, but we'll see. I just don't think he would go to a division where the gap in quarterback talent between where he's at now and where the AFC West is massive. I mean, Rex Ryan, people were getting on Rex Ryan yesterday on ESPN for saying, hold on. Wow. I'll tell you what I just saw in a second, but people were getting on lost my train of thought. Where was that? Oh yeah, people getting on Rex Ryan for saying that Aaron Rodgers was going to be the third best quarterback in the AFC West if he joined with the Broncos. I don't think it's a hot take, guys. I mean, Mahomes is better. Okay, I'm sorry, cheeseheads. Mahomes is a better quarterback. What Justin Herbert's shown me, I mean, Justin Herbert doesn't exactly have Devontae Adams. He doesn't exactly have a great offensive line. His defense is hit and miss. I'd take Justin Herbert today over Aaron Rodgers. Today. Not all time, but today I'd take him over Aaron Rodgers. But I think it's really interesting. The NBA All-Star starters are being voted in right now. Being announced right now on TNT. And we just got the news that my man, Andrew Wiggins of the Golden State Warriors, is an all-star starter. He ain't an all-star. He's a starter in the all-star game in Cleveland, Ohio, a few weeks from now. So good for my man Wiggins. People called the Warriors crazy for that trade, and guess what? 2 years later, they have an all-star. They have an extra all-star next to Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green. Hopefully, Draymond comes back pretty soon, but good for Andrew Wiggins. I'm going to see real quick if I can, because I just tuned in late here, see if I can get the other all-star starters. Okay, the front court's been announced. It's Wiggins, LeBron, and Nikola Jokic as well. They just announced Steph Curry has been announced once again as an all-star starter. This is his 8th all-star selection. We're just doing like a selection announcement show here. But my man Steph, although he's been in a shooting slump lately, he's in the all-star game. Of course, that's a no-brainer along with LeBron and Jokic. So I would assume the other starter would be Ja Morant, surely. Yes, it is Ja Morant of the Memphis Grizzlies, who is the all-star guard starter in the Western Conference next to Steph Curry. So congratulations to Ja. What a season this guy's had, what he's done for the Memphis Grizzlies. Credit to him. But while they're doing the break here, because I don't think they're going to announce the reserves. I think this is just all-star starters. Let me talk about Big Ben for a second. So Ben Roethlisberger officially announced today that he retired. That comes as a shock to absolutely nobody. You know, we had the last game at Heinz Field when they beat the Cleveland Browns, and he had he walked a lap around the stadium, high-fiving fans, embracing the fans and his family. It's like, okay, he's gonna hang up the cleats and sort of what he was talking about going into that playoff game against Kansas City. And so people tell him, I don't think anybody's necessarily debating if Ben's a Hall of Famer. I think his resume pretty much speaks for itself. You take into account that he played for, one of the best organizations, not in the National Football League, but in sports. And, you look at his accolades in total, and, he's a 2-time Super Bowl champion, obviously. I thought he should have won the Super Bowl MVP over Santonio Holmes in Super Bowl 43, but I guess because Holmes made that ridiculous catch in the end zone against the Cardinals that won the game, you give it to him because of how he played. I have no problem with that. You could also give it to James Harrison, too. He had a pick six before the half in that game, but he was the Rookie of the Year in 2004, 6-time Pro Bowler, 2 times passing yards leader. So numbers speak for themselves. Statistically, he's the greatest Steelers quarterback ever. I would give him the slight nod over Terry Bradshaw just because quarterbacks weren't as relied on in the 70s as they are in today's game, or even in the last 2 decades. So I think Ben's a first ballot Hall of Famer. We talk about with the Baseball Hall of Fame, like, don't even get me back into that. But when you talk about the guys you can't tell the story of the NFL without, you can't tell without Big Ben. I mean, Super Bowl 43 is one of the greatest games in NFL history, without a question. The game was played in Tampa. They played the Cardinals. Kurt Warner at the end of his career, and Ben outdueled Kurt, led him on a game-winning drive and won it. And so he deserves a lot of credit. There were some ups and there was definitely some downs in his career, but all in all, respect to Ben. Great career, and has really turned his life around off the field in general. So credit to him there. But we'll see where the Steelers go from here. I would assume that they would go if they can't go out and get Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson or even a Deshaun Watson. I would see them going out and saying, okay, Dwayne Haskins is our guy for 2022. I would see that being the case. So that's where I'm at with Big Ben. I think they'll give Dwayne Haskins a shot, put him in a good culture, and do that. So they're announcing the Eastern Conference starters in the NBA All-Star Game right now. They just announced Kevin Durant. Again, no surprise to anybody. He's the best scorer I've ever seen and most gifted. Okay, they're discussing him on TNT right now. Again, we'll see who the starters are throughout the rest of the night, but this is exciting. This is when you know that the Super Bowl's coming up, and you got the AFC and NFC championship games on Sunday that I will predict tomorrow. I also have my man Alfred Parsard Jr. Can't wait to have him back on Carving It Up. It's been a while. Getting Alfred back on here to talk about the Hall of Fame. I'm sure we'll chop it up there. And tomorrow, I'm sorry. I get my throat, guys. It's going bye-bye on me, but I'll predict the AFC and NFC championship games. Who will go to Super Bowl 56? I will tell you who exactly that will be. So it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. So and they just announced Giannis is an all-star starter. Again, surprise to nobody. All right, that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and share to the Carving Up YouTube channel. You've been listening on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter. And for those listening to the Carving Up podcast, we appreciate that as well. You've been listening on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Anchor, as well as wherever you listen to your podcast. Have a great evening, everybody. See y'all tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time on the platforms that you are watching right now. See y'all. Have a great day. Have a great night. Stay safe out there. God bless you all. Peace out. I'm out of here. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube. Be sure to click that big red subscribe button and go check out the other clips and full shows of Carving It Up Live. Have a blessed day.